Être indépendant, c'est pouvoir gérer son emploi du temps, l'adapter à nos envies, travailler plus quand il faut travailler plus, passer plus de temps avec sa famille si on a envie. Bien sûr, je me suis déjà posé la question de savoir comment j'allais être couvert en cas d'accident, en cas de maladie, comment j'allais être protégé à ce moment-là. Ça fait 3 ans que je travaille avec Uber. Ces dernières années, tout se passait bien. Et puis en mars 2020, je me réveille un matin, fatigué, tout, mal de tête. Je commence à paniquer en fait. J'appelle mon médecin, je lui décris mes symptômes. Il me dit que c'est le Covid. Là, c'est 21 jours d'arrêt, d'isolement. C'est le coup de massue. Être à l'arrêt pendant 21 jours quand on est indépendant, c'est très compliqué. Il y a toujours des factures qui arrivent. Si on ne règle pas, ça s'accumule en fait. J'ai entendu parler de la protection partenaire. C'est une couverture AXA à laquelle j'ai droit gratuitement en conduisant avec Uber. J'ai rempli une déclaration sur le site d'AXA. Par la suite, ils m'ont recontacté. Ça a pris quelques jours pour avoir une compensation financière. C'est bien d'être indépendant, mais avoir une protection comme celle-ci, c'est essentiel. Le fait d'avoir traversé cette épreuve, ça m'a ouvert les yeux sur pas mal de choses. J'ai envie de consacrer encore plus de temps à ma famille, à mes proches et à moi-même aussi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Gunter. We are excited to have you with us on the 3rd edition of the AXA Live Innovation Talks, dedicated to key innovation topics with prominent leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts. Don't forget, you can watch previous episodes on YouTube. We are also on social media, so do not hesitate to ask your questions on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Today's topic: how can innovation better protect workers in the gig economy? As we continue our transition from a manufacturing economy to a service economy, we are seeing a shift from full-time employment to a more independent work. This trend poses a major challenge. How do we make sure independent contractors get access to the same protections that regular employees have? To dive into how we can protect independent workers in a new economy, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dorron Mottes, founder and CEO of N-Frnds. N-Frnds offers a unique last-mile hybrid multi-product distribution network for emerging markets, connecting consumer goods, insurers, and financial institutions with small retailers and consumers. N-Frnds are global strategic partners of Microsoft, Coca-Cola, AXA Insurance, and many others. 100 million last-mile retailers in emerging markets represent 5 trillion of trade, compose this last-mile network. Our second guest is Michael Raney, head of international insurance at Uber. In Q1 of this year, Uber served 98 million unique customers who took 1.4 billion rides and deliveries in more than 10,000 cities across 71 countries. In Europe, Uber are present in 21 out of 27 EU countries, plus the UK, where 600,000 drivers and couriers used the app in 2020 to access flexible earnings opportunities. And our third guest is our own Garance Wattez-Richard, head of AXA's Emerging Customers, a unit dedicated to making insurance accessible, affordable, and relevant to 4 billion low-income and mass-market customers who remain vulnerable to unforeseen events. Without further ado, let's dive into the topic. Let's start with a quick roundtable question. So this is for all of you. A recent MetLife study on the gig economy found that 85% of current independent workers wanted to continue as gig workers. Is the gig economy indeed here to stay? Garance, do you want to take first shot at that?
Thank you, Scott. And I hope everybody can hear us because I've been getting a few messages saying some people still can't. So hopefully they can now. Thanks for that question and thanks for introducing me, Scott. I'm not sure many of us are going to say no. The recent numbers I looked this morning, and it said by 2023 we were going to go from approximately 50 million to 80 million gig workers. So it looks like it's here to stay. And the one thing I would just add is that given that gig workers are characterized by flexibility, agility, and also a relatively irregular, purpose-driven, let's say, work week, I think every single trend in the market, digitalization, artificial intelligence, cashless markets, pandemics, women in the workplace, rising inequality, so some good, some bad, aging populations, all the numbers seem to be saying the same.
Perfect. Thank you. Dorron, do you want to add any comments?
Yeah, I'm not going to surprise Garance. I also think it's going to be here. And I'll take the emerging markets angle. So we're looking at the small independent businesses in emerging markets. And for them, the biggest issue is really to have a stable living and create enough earnings for themselves. And the gig economy is a great way to enhance the amount of money that they can make, or they have the spare time, but they don't have ways to really make money. And especially when we're looking at youth and women that can leverage these capabilities in emerging markets.
Great, thank you. And Michael, any comments to add?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. I'm not going to disagree with either Garance or Dorron. Agree with those points. I think good points made. Gig work is here to stay. I don't think that number is actually surprising. Independent work isn't new. People have been doing this for many, many years across all kinds of trades. And I think what we see is that apps have made it easier and more efficient to connect workers to earning opportunities. And that's given them more flexibility to work whenever they want. And I think what we're seeing in those numbers is that people are responding to that.
Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you. Our next question is for Garance. When we talk about independent workers, there are many different statuses and situations. What are their different needs in terms of protection?
Thanks, Scott. Just one thing is it appears to be working much better on YouTube than on LinkedIn. So there seems to be an issue on LinkedIn. So those of you who are on LinkedIn, maybe if you try on YouTube, it seems to be working more. So just very quickly, I think the interesting thing you mentioned before, Scott, that was also mentioned by the two other people, is that it's not a one size fits all, right? So what's a new topic? Basically, it's a new trend. I think we can still call it new. Working without a work contract in Western or Occidental lenses actually is the norm, back to Dorron's point, in many parts of the world, right? There's a source of the ILO which says that more than 60% of the world's employed population are in the informal economy. And in Africa, that's almost 90%. So they have no health or accident benefits. So while on the one hand, in so-called developed markets, the gig economy is about how to transform and adapt social protection, right? Which was born through the invention of the work contract a while ago, to sort of this new trend, a new way of working. In emerging markets, it's really a formidable opportunity to build the safety nets from scratch. So just to really go back to the second part of your question, when we say gig economy workers, we tend to think about drivers and riders, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. But they're electricians, they're plumbers, they're domestic workers. And my team found quite interesting numbers that are quite recent, actually, which says that basically 40% are transport-based services, so ride-hailing, courier delivery. About 20% are asset sharing services. I hope I'm getting the numbers right. I tried to learn them by heart, but so renting an asset owner or gig workers property. And then professional services are about 20%. Who are those? They're writers, translators, graphic designers, etc. And then the 20% remaining are household services and handmade goods, right? So I think we have to think more largely of who we're talking about. And very quickly on the second part of your question, their protection needs are threefold: structural external factors, the Uber driver with COVID; work-related factors, damage to the Uber driver's car or theft of the mobile phones; and personal, obviously, and family-related factors, like, again, inability to work due to sickness, etc.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Rance. It looks like we have received a question by video. It's asked by Evie Alia, who runs a micro retail outlet, Dorron, which sells consumer goods to the last miles. Let's watch the video.
Can you tell me how N-Frnds helps small business like mine to grow and become digital, and what sort of insurance is available for small business like mine?
Dorron, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, when you're seeing Evie Alia, she's a small store in Indonesia, and the main challenges that they have is really the inefficiencies in the entire networks. So she's paying the highest prices for the products that she's buying, and it means that also the consumer goods and most of the people in emerging markets are transacting with these small stores. It's 86% of the transactions are done through these small stores, so they're paying also the highest prices in the market. It's really to provide a solution for Evie Alia, you really have to provide a solution that solves the inefficiencies in the value chain, and that's what we're doing. We're providing a full holistic solution that digitizes the entire value chain, and that enables to create the efficiencies to provide better prices for Evie Alia, and to also enable the larger companies like Coca-Cola to provide them with discounts, with promotions that are especially designed for them. Today, Coca-Cola has no relationship with these small customers because they would order maybe 2 cases of Coke. It's too small to go and reach them. But through our services, they can do that. We create those efficiencies, and then there's data. We start knowing what's going on in the value chain. We understand what Evie Alia is selling, who's selling to her. We get that information, and now you can provide trade finance, you can provide credit, so it enables them to grow their business. And on top of that, now you can start providing additional services like insurance. And at these times, as I would say post-COVID, we launched together with AXA a micro-insurance service for Evie Alia and similar stores that enabled them to receive insurance, a very simple insurance that they can afford, around $4 a year, and it enables them that once they're sick and they have to go into the hospital, they get a flat fee paid directly to them. So it's also a simple payment if they need it. And that's, I think, the secret of creating these type of solutions for the last mile.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Michael, this one's for you. Uber is seen as an innovator in mobility and delivery and has been in the spotlight as it relates to workers' rights debates. How do you address these issues, and how does working with partners like AXA help you better protect drivers and couriers?
Thanks, it's a great question. And I think insurance certainly plays a role here. In Europe, you mentioned we've got hundreds of thousands of drivers and couriers that work on the Uber app. And in a survey we commissioned, over 90% of them said that flexibility was the #1 reason that they worked on the Uber platform. We know, though, that independent work can lead to protection gaps, since many social protection systems just aren't adapted for this. So we're proponents of creating modern legislation that recognizes independent work and that creates ways for providing social protections. In the meantime, though, we're not waiting. We think that flexibility shouldn't come at the expense of protection. And that's why we launched partner protection with AXA to cover drivers and couriers for injuries while they're working on app. Garance was mentioning that earlier. This is a coverage that starts when a driver or courier accepts a ride or a delivery request and ends when the passenger or the item reaches their destination. And in Europe, we've also included income protection for lost wages if somebody can't work because of serious illness or because of injury or even parental leave. And all these protections that we've developed with AXA are included in the platform for drivers and couriers when they're on app.
Thank you. It looks like there's a question in the chat from Guillaume. So let's hand this one to Garance. Let me just read it to you. What does it actually mean to protect independent workers in this new economy, gig economy? How do we do it, and what innovative solutions, products, and services has AXA's emerging customers been able to develop?
Thank you, Scott and Guillaume, who have asked it. I think a very essential element in this answer is the fact that working with gig economy and other tech platforms, gives us a really unprecedented ability to embed insurance into workers' day-to-day activities. So it becomes a sort of natural add-on instead of being something difficult, instead of it being a chore, right? Oh, I have to, add my insurance. How am I going to do that, etc. So our insurance, it provides protection in 3 different forms, just so to make it easier to sort of remember. It's cover on the job, so using the partner's platform. So it's coverages like work accidents or professional liability, which means professional liability means harm caused to others. A good example is electricians, for example. So it's insurance where you can use, we've been doing it, you use a sort of loyalty program with an energy provider, and it can provide personal accident or hospitalization, etc., to, let's say, the top performing electricians. So there's an incentive element, right? So that's cover on the job. Number 2 is income replacement. So business interruption insurance, when there's a damaged car, back to the video, or in case of inability to work. And finally, covering for the health, their health and that of their families. So obviously teleconsultations, which is the word of the day these days, with the crash course we've all taken on health in the world, with health professionals. Hospitalization covers, so a very one where we've seen there's a huge gap is with domestic workers. A significant share of domestic workers are women, who also have a tendency of having a very holistic approach to protection. So then they introduce that into their household and communities. So to finish, beyond the what I just talked about was the what, there's the how. And here it's by making sure that the coverage and the claim information is accessible inside the app, right, and embedded into their profile. And premiums can be sort of regularly deducted from revenues directly, which makes things very easy and which makes the customer journey and the customer experience very seamless. And less, again, back to my initial point, less of a chore.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Michael, this next question is for you. AXA Uber programs are strong throughout different continents in very diverse markets, around, I think, 30 countries overall in Europe and the Middle East and Africa and in Mexico, with their own ways of working. How does Uber adapt to the local marketplace?
So for us, it's actually over 70 countries that we've got to look at. So that's a lot to look after. We look at regulations, we look at market practice, we look at culture. We focus on making sure that our coverage is compliant with local rules and regulations in many places. And we do see, as we're doing that many workers just don't have the social protections that employees have. So as a result of that, we put occupational injury coverages in place for drivers and couriers in many of our markets. And these have to be adapted market by market. We started the design of our insurance programs with AXA in France in 2016. And there we really looked hard at legislation created at the time for sharing economy companies, which allowed platforms to provide protection for independent workers. And this then was the basis of the program that I described earlier that we later went on to expand to the UK and the rest of Europe 2 years later. The program we have with AXA in the UK and the EU now includes both on and off app protections. We've made that a priority, and we took the decision to provide that more than what the law actually requires. We think it's the right thing to do, and we also think it's a reflection on the cultural values and norms in the region. We've got similar programs in many countries around the world where we provide some combination of coverage for medical expense, permanent disability, or accidental death when on app.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Dorron. Can you walk us through a concrete example of how partnerships, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, MasterCard, et cetera, help you enable small businesses to keep growing?
Sure. We're here on a huge task. It's to get these 400 million businesses digitized, and these value chains they're very tough value chains. It's small very small businesses, but there's many of them. You can't do it alone. You have to have very strong partnerships like we have with AXA. We have additional partnerships with Coca-Cola. And for example, with Coca-Cola, their main issue is that they can't reach these small businesses. And even if they reach them through other sellers. So they can't really reach them with promotions, incentives. They can't really provide them with better prices. So through our solution, we enable them to know what's going on, what are the transactions, how these small businesses are buying, and we also enable them to deliver and provide promotions and incentives. So it means that for these small retailers now, they can really get the best prices, but now they can get additional discounts directly from Coca-Cola, which nobody else can provide them with. So it brings them a lot of value. On top of that, we're working with Microsoft, which basically was our first global strategic partner. And they identified that all these small businesses are not going to one day download Office 365, start using Excel and manage their business. You need different type of productivity tools. And that's exactly also the notion behind our infrastructure. The need is for different type of solutions in emerging markets. You can't just take a solution from the Western world, plug it in and say, oh, it's going to work. So we're working very closely with Microsoft, with their R&D engineering teams, and creating new products, both from our solutions and from Microsoft. And Microsoft is selling it in the market. And maybe last but not least is the trade finance. It's a great enhancement to have the capabilities to provide lending, but again, you have to be innovative in how you create this lending. It's not just giving out money. You have to think how you provide it to drive the business. So it's usually giving out products. If it's on consignment or in various different schemes that enable the businesses to grow the business. And MasterCard is a very strong partner for us in the trade finance space as well.
Great. Thank you. We got one last question, and we're going to take it from the chat. This one is asked by Laura. In fact, let's make it a roundtable question. So for each of you, how would you describe the future of protection for independent workers in one word? So let's start with Michael. Let's start with you first this time.
Only one word.
I think you can explain your word, I guess. So.
No, that's not the game. One word.
Okay. I would say tailored. I think the challenge with ensuring access to protection for independent workers is regulations and systems are just not designed for it right now. And as people want greater flexibility, we need to create solutions that fit their needs. People aren't all the same. So we need to take that into account. And also consider when it comes to platforms that people are working oftentimes across multiple platforms during any given day.
Perfect. Thank you. Dorron, what do you think?
For us, really for our customers, it's simplicity. Our customers never used insurance, so it has to be super clear to them what it is, why it drives them, gives them benefit. They have to spend a very expensive money for that type of insurance, and if they're not familiar with it, they're not going to do it. So the simplicity is super important.
Excellent. And Garance, you get the last word.
I think I'm going to say one word because each of you pronounced 173 respectively and 294 words. So my one word is going to be portable.
Okay. Portable. Excellent. This next question is for you. It's a two-part question. In what ways have partnerships changed the perception of insurance, and how do we innovate solutions for our clients, even beyond the gig economy?
Thank you, Scott. So in answer to the first part of your question, I think we cannot tell a lie, and that insurance is quite often perceived. You look worried at my answer, Scott, but what I wanted to say was insurance is often perceived as opaque, expensive, complex, black box, right? Especially in emerging markets when, the percentage of people that actually have ever had just one insurance policy is probably less than 10%. So what we've done is we've worked quite hard, very hard actually, to revamp our product range, right? And make sure that the rules of the game are clear. So we make sure that our clients understand what they're buying, that they know what the exclusions are. And there again, we're working quite hard to have very few exclusions, making the actuaries and stuff my best friends. and they know who to call or who to reach out to when there's a problem. So that means that in terms of partnerships, working with digital platforms also makes a difference, right, in making insurance more relatable. I don't know if that's an English word, but as we always say, English supports innovation. So relatable and relevant and trustworthy through co-design work with them from the beginning. From the beginning, there's a co-design work with the partner, with the platform, the data they manage and the digital customer journeys that they enable. It makes the difference. It really makes the difference between this type of partner and the other types of partners, because they provide speedy and really frictionless claims, which is what we're looking for, right? And because frictionless claims is probably the moment of truth, given that usually when clients talk to us is when something goes wrong. And so if that's frictionless and seamless, then we've done our job.
Thank you. Michael, this one's for you. How do you find the balance between granting access to protections and benefits versus flexibility and job creation?
Yeah, it's a good question. We think that protections and benefits for independent workers need to be strengthened. We believe that it should and can be done in a way that allows for the kind of flexibility that only platform work provides. And the current rules around benefits are outdated and mostly designed to protect people who are in standard employment relationships. So as governments consider new regulations, we think it's important to build on preserving flexibility while at the same time securing worker protections. For this, we need clear rules and a level playing field that incentivize all platforms, all participants to do more. Uber and AXA showed that insurance know-how, technology, and innovation can create solutions to combine protection and flexibility. We did that in our partner protection program. And we think this is the model that needs to be built on. And last, I'd say that we recently released an EU Vision white paper called A Better Deal. And this is a call to action to ensure that all workers have access to adequate social protection, regardless of employment status or type of work.
Great. Thank you. Dorron, this one's for you. Millions of small businesses need support to thrive, especially in emerging markets where micro businesses drive the economy. In what ways does N-Frnds support them, and how do digital tools and innovations help you better manage the relationship with these small merchants?
Okay. Thanks for the question. So most of the people in the world, on the planet, really buy in these small stores. They buy all their whatever they need, if it's soap, cooking oil, Coca-Cola. They buy it in small quantities and basically off-grid. There's no data about these purchases, nothing. Everything is in cash, so there's no track of that. And it's all small quantities. So it's very hard to bring in technology to support these small stores. And you have to come with really innovative solutions in order to digitize those stores and those value chains. And we found that the right way to do it is really when you innovate, when you digitize the entire value chain. That's where you can really gain the efficiencies and the productivity from digital tools. And then each participant has to use it at the level that they can use the technology. It's a gradual process. It's not that one day they're managing their whole business through technology. So you have to find the right way to do that. In addition to that, we have also commerce managers that are both salespeople, but they also support in that gradual usage of technology and create that type of innovation. This is a huge task to do, and you can't really do it by yourself. You really need partners, and AXA is one of our best partners to do that on the side of bringing microinsurance, plugging in microinsurance into these networks, and there's many others to provide abilities in trade finance and providing loans to these small businesses.
Thank you. Garance, this one's for you. Today, the economic crisis, reinforced by the COVID-19 pandemic, is causing inequalities, whether it's growth and also including health protection. What role should AXA play in continuing to offer inclusive protection? And what are the most effective initiatives, actions that you think are are here to help the low to middle income populations in emerging countries, be insured?
That's a great question. I think that one sometimes forgotten impact of COVID has been the inability to access physical care for everything but COVID-related problems, right? So we took an example. I was talking to my teams about this, and we took an example, and we saw that half of our Egyptian micro-entrepreneur clients, and that's hundreds of thousands of people, couldn't find a hospital bed for non-COVID cases, which is why we've now expanded for this particular population, our teleconsultation services to about 2 million people in the last 6 months. But beyond having the right protection offers, addressing low insurance penetration, and I think Dorron just said it in a way. He said, addressing this around the world isn't something that AXA can do on its own. And there's this expression in English, I think it's an English expression, which is about sharing the pie, right? I think we're at a stage where we've just put the ingredients together and we're putting it in the oven. So when we've reached the point of having to share it, I would be very happy. But right now we need to collaborate and forge partnerships and consortiums with like-minded companies. So, for example, there's the CEO Partnership for Financial Inclusion consortium led by Queen Maxima, who's the United Nations ambassador on the UN SDG for financial inclusion, or the Business for Inclusive Growth. And often we think that these consortiums and these partnerships with big companies is just wind, and we just get together for meetings. And before, there was the added adventure of being able to meet in very exotic places, and everybody thought they didn't lead to anything. But actually, they're very, very value creating. Of course, if you impose things that can be measured, because what isn't measurable doesn't exist.
Correct. Thank you. We're staying on the theme of COVID-19. Dorron, how has COVID-19 impacted your organization, and how are you, helping the self-employed workers, during the pandemic?
Yeah, so our small micro retailers were highly affected. They obviously they're small. They don't have any backup plans. They don't have really cash in the bank. So they're highly affected when something like this happens. And they also don't have insurance at all in this market, which makes it also, in some cases, an opportunity. But this is really where you can see how a challenging time leads to innovation, because before COVID, it was very hard to explain why do they need insurance, and now it was very clear. So we launched together with AXA a micro insurance, a micro health service, which was a very brave move, I would say, especially for a company like AXA to launch something like that in a market like this in April as COVID was rolling out. And we had a very good traction and also very good understanding of when I was saying simplicity. It's very clear. You go into the hospital, you get a payment. So it means that people that before the expenses of going into a hospital is not the bills for the health only. It's mainly they have to close their business, so they have no revenues coming in. So having something that just immediately they get a cash to support them past these times enables them to close the store and go to the hospital. So that's a very important thing. So basically, when you're looking at these crisis and traumatic and painful times, it also leads to innovation and creating creative solutions that really can drive a better life for the people in the last mile and these micro businesses.
Great, thank you. Michael, question for you. A study by MIT Sloan has shown that when Uber comes into a country, unemployment rates for car owners decrease by an average of 5% compared to those without cars. So in that vein, in what ways do innovative companies positively impact the unemployment rate and the demand for gig workers?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Thanks for that. We see Uber and other platforms having an important role in supporting Europe's recovery. Platforms help people find work alternatives quickly and for as long as they need. And this can also be a stepping stone for those excluded from the traditional labor market. An example during the pandemic was we saw that as many as 40% of couriers in 6 countries across Europe started to deliver with Uber Eats to compensate for pay cuts or job loss due to COVID-19. The European Economic and Social Committee recently recognized platforms' contribution to job creation and allowing vulnerable people to access employment while at the same time preserving some flexibility and autonomy. We see, on the other hand, I think interestingly, that mandating that independent workers be classified as employees can do the opposite. It can result in reduced opportunities to work. We saw this as an example in Geneva, where opportunities for both restaurants and couriers were reduced, and customer service suffered as well after a court banned independent contractors from making deliveries. So I think we can see the plus and the minus on this as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that wraps up for today. I want to thank all 3 of our guests for your great insights on this topic. I found it very interesting and found how all 3 of you are working very hard to take an evolving economy and really help service the people that are in it. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. I am glad we were able to have this conversation and actually be able to broadcast it. Make sure you tune in again. There's more episodes on AXA Live Innovation Talks coming up in the following months. We'll leave you with an interesting video showcasing how N-Frnds is helping out in the protection of last mile distributors. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Nama Ibu Haji Eis DT. Umur Ibu 60 tahun, mengisi waktu luang sehari-hari Ibu jualan.
Ceritakan kepada saya tentang penyakit Ibu.
Pertama kali Ibu bangun pagi-pagi, kencing, agak sakit sedikit. Kedua kali, ketiga pas kencing keempat kalinya, Ibu kencingnya ada darahan. Ibu langsung ke rumah sakit, ternyata dari rumah sakit diperiksa infeksi saluran kencing. Terus Ibu dirawat sampai 4 hari.
Gimana saat Anda pertama mengajukan klaim? Apa yang terjadi?
Dibantu sama Bill.
Saya berinisiatif sendiri untuk membantu ibu-ibu yang sudah memiliki akses sahabat sehat, dan kemudian karena kurang mengertinya Ibu, saya membantu proses dari awal hingga akhir.
Kapan Ibu tahu bahwa klaimnya sudah dibayar?
Nggak tahu ada informasi dari bank ke Ibu, katanya ada uang masuk dari asuransi AXA.
Bagaimana perasaan Ibu?
Senang.
Digunakan untuk apa uang klaim tersebut?
Ada di tabungan, belum dipakai apa-apa buat kenang-kenangan dari asuransi AXA.